Hi guys, Debbie Dubois here. Welcome back to my channel, True Sacred Union. I'm glad you're here with me. We're going to do another video today for the Twin Flame series, and we're going to talk about clearing your energy or how much we can do for the other person. And there's a lot of confusion over what that means. We know that we're connected to our counterparts in some form or fashion. The truth is we're really connected with everybody, and we're always coming into contact with energies that seem to be discordant with what we're feeling or what we think we're feeling. And so trying to figure out whose energy belongs to who can get very tricky sometimes. But one of the ways that I like to check in, is to basically say, if I say to myself, okay, I'm having these really weird feelings and it doesn't seem like it's my circumstances or situations, what I will do is I will say, is this mine? If it isn't mine, it almost always goes away. I mean, I'm like, oh, it's gone. All right. So sometimes just questioning if this belongs to you. I know that there are other people who, talk about records that we pass each other. And this is just in general. This isn't just between divine counterparts. But if we really want to clear up our own energy so we know where we're at, if we just go ahead and ask that records be returned, to where they came from, and you'd like all of your records back that belong to you, we can kind of clear sometimes like that. What I'm really talking about, though, in addition to that kind of clearing, is when you know that your counterpart is going through really, really rough times. There's been a lot of questions as to, what can you do to help the situation? And I want to say there's two answers to this. Number one, the other person has their own stuff that they need to deal with. And we have to realize that our paths really they're intertwined to some degree, but they have their own stuff that they're working on, and that is really not your thing. However, when you process your own stuff, okay, when you find your own sensitivities and you focus on your own blocks and things that need to be cleared, you automatically impact them and other people around you as well. So I always like to say that if you are being triggered or if you are aligned with some of the energies that your counterpart is going through, you can deal with only what you can deal with. In other words, if that person's going through a dark night of the soul, or they are having substance abuse problems, or they are having relationship issues if they're in relationship with someone else, you really can't do anything about that, except what you can do is you can acknowledge that there's some piece of you that's dealing with some similar kind of issues, and it might not be the same issue. It can actually be a polar opposite issue. But that's where you can make a difference in the connection, is by working on your own stuff. And how do you figure out what is your stuff? A lot of times the triggers that we experience in these relationships really tells us where our sensitivities still are. Of course, we're triggered all the time by a lot of different things in our life, but when we're thinking about triggers that are very specific to this person and their behavior, because a lot of us in relationships where we're trying to figure out where that other person is coming from. And we try to interpret what we're experiencing or not experiencing based on a lot of stories that we tell ourselves. The stories that we tell ourselves are honestly probably the greatest signposts to tell you where you're at, what you need to work on. So, all right. So is you're observing your interactions with this person or your lack of interactions with this person or circumstances that trigger you in this relationship, even if it's something you see on Facebook or messages that you get or don't get. Okay, all of these things allow us the opportunity to tell ourselves a story. So when we start to tell ourselves the story, that's when we can tell if we still have something to work on. Because if you really don't have anything to clear, there's no trigger. It doesn't matter what you see. It doesn't matter whether or not you're in communication or not. If you're not being triggered in that connection, then you're pretty clear. Okay. If you're not, now I want to say if you're not telling yourself stories about the circumstances, then you are relatively clear, okay? Because you just take everything at face value. You just, either that or you're telling yourself helpful stories. And I love helpful stories because they're like, oh yeah, the person's busy. Oh yeah, they haven't called me because of this. Oh yeah, it's not a problem. I'm busy and I'm doing my thing. That's like healthy responses, right? But if you're triggered, it means you're telling yourself stories that aren't helpful to you. And, even see, the thing is you could be telling yourself stories that are helpful to you, and that might not be the situation at all, but it doesn't matter because it means you're centered in your own energy. I hope that made sense. All right. So the stories that we're telling ourselves very specifically tells us the stuff that we need to work on and the stuff that needs balancing. So if you find yourself telling yourself stories like this person is in this relationship and they're going through all of this and I'm feeling their energy, I think that they're feeling this and I think that they're feeling that. All of those stories that you're telling yourself are a good indication of stuff that you need to work on yourself. So it might be really helpful to write down some of the stories that we're telling ourselves, the explanations. That's a good way of saying it. What are you saying to yourself that explains the story of what's happening to you? Like you could actually, that's why journaling can be so helpful, because you're writing down the story of what you think is going on. But if you look back and you read that story, what you want to do then is you want to start saying, okay, what is the story that I'm telling myself telling me about me? What are some of my fears? What are some of the patterns that I have that are expectations that I am creating in my own reality? All right. When we can get to those, then we're really able to work on what we can work on to help the situation, as opposed to thinking in terms of clearing on behalf of another person. We're really clearing our own stuff. So let's say you are feeling that counterpart pull away from you. It really doesn't matter why they're pulling away from you, but you're feeling the energy of pulling away and you're starting to get panicking feelings. Or you're judging the other person. That's an even better way to say it. If you interpret that other person pulling away and you see that they're pulling away because you feel that they're fearful of the connection or whatever, what I would say to you is your interpretation of that story is that there's fear on the other person's behalf. Maybe it's your own fear being projected outward. So then we have a new way of looking at it, like, oh, maybe they're just pulling away so that I can see that I'm fearful and there's something about this connection that's making me fearful, right? So then you can go into those feelings. So I guess the bottom line is that being in this connection, being in any kind of catalytic heart awakening connection, is that there's not a lot you can do for that person. Really, all you can do is focus on clearing your own stuff, because when you do that, you will bring them up automatically with you. But you don't concentrate on what you think they've got to work on. You see what I'm saying? You concentrate on what that situation tells you about yourself and your things that need clearing. So anyways, I hope that that was helpful. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel and you'd like to be part of my True Sacred Union family, I would love to have you. So until next time, namaste.